We're going to do about 4 examples on how to simplify trigonometric expressions by using even-odd properties of trig functions. So, for example, cosine and secant are both even, and that means I can just take away the negative for my angle. These are even, and the main reason you can do that is because cosine has the same values in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4, sorry about that. And for the second set, these are odd. So there's only 2 here, the rest are odd. And the reason they're odd is because their y values change signs in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4 when you're looking at your unit circle. Another thing to note is this. When you have something like, let's use tan. Tan squared of negative t, that's the same as saying tan to the negative t squared, which just is going to be tan of squared of t. You're squaring out the negatives. 2 negatives make a positive. Normally when they write sine squared of, I'll just put theta, that's the same as writing sine theta squared. So you can square that out. So just notice that, because that might come up. So the first one we have, the first thing we're going to do is deal with the even odd. Sine is odd, so I'm going to pull out the negative. This is supposed to be a negative here. Cosine is even, so I can change that to a positive. So I'm just going to write that with the positive. Now, cosecant is odd, so I can pull that negative out, and that's going to change that negative to a positive. Also know that cosecant of t equals 1 over sine of t. So I'm going to go ahead and write that to save room. This will be 1 over sine of t. Therefore, my common denominator is 1 plus cosine of t times sine of t. Now, I'm just going to cross here, and you're going to get negative sine squared of t plus, and I'm going to cross that one up here, 1 plus cosine of t. Now, when you sit here and you're looking at this, there's not much more you can do. And it doesn't look simplified. The only thing I can do to simplify this more is deal with this sine squared. So in here, I'm going to just work with the numerator. I'm going to write my sine squared as 1 minus cosine squared through my Pythagorean identities. Now, just keep working with my denominator just to save room on here. Go ahead and distribute here. What happens here is the ones cancel. And then just keep working with my numerator again. I can factor out a cosine, and I'm going to get cosine of t plus 1. I'm just dealing with these two, and I factored out a t. Now, let's write it on this side. So my numerator is cosine of t times cosine of t plus 1. I hate all these parentheses. That's why I hate t. All right, and in the denominator I have 1 plus cosine of t, and then that's times sine of t. And what happens is these two cancel, so you're just left with cos of t over sine of t. And that equals cotan of t. So all of this got simplified to one simple cotan of t. Now this one, again, I'm going to use my even odd properties. They're both odd. So if I pull out both negatives, so if I pull out a negative here, and I pull out this negative here, I have two negatives. That makes a positive. So what I'm left with is cosecant of t times tan of t. I'm going to write, simplify this now by writing it in terms of sine and cosine times sine of t over cosine of t. Now, these two cancel, so we get 1 over cosine of t, which equals secant of t. All right, and my cosine is even, so I'm just going to make that positive. My cotan is odd, so I'm going to make this part positive, but pull out the negative. Now I'm going to write everything in terms of sine and cosine. So we have negative cosine of t over sine of t divided by cosine of t. Now, if you recall, I'm going to write this as you would in grade school. We're going to write it as negative cosine of t over sine of t divided by cosine of t. You can put that over 1 if you want. Now remember in elementary school, when you have this division thing going, we're keeping the first part, change, and flip. Okay? So basically when you see something like this, you can just pull him up here because of this. Because of the elementary school way of doing that. What happens is the cosines cancel, get negative 1 over sine of t, or you can write that as negative cosecant of t. My t's. All right. And the last one. Okay, so cosines are even, so I'm just going to change these to positives. And also the square. Remember, if I move the square over here, that's going to make that a positive. So you're squaring the negative. I can go ahead and just change that to a positive as well. So now I'm just going to simplify this. Well, first of all, I can factor out a cosine. You can do these in different orders. And I'm going to get 1 plus, and then this is going to be sine squared over, well, no, I don't want to do that yet. Yeah, that's a bad move. So let me write this out. Cosine of t plus cosine of t times sine squared of t over, because this all goes together, cosine squared of t. Now what happens is the cosine goes into the cosine squared one time. So in the denominator we just have cosine of t. This is over 1. So we're going to use our common denominators, cosine of t, and cross. So when you cross up here, you're going to get cosine squared of t, and 1 times sine squared is just sine squared of t. Now this equals 1, so we get 1 over cosine of t, which equals secant of t. And that's all. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.